Welcome to the Gerbil Experiments with Megan Stevens of eatbeautiful.net. Hi, I'm Megan Stevens with eatbeautiful.net. Today, as a part of the Gerbil studies, we're going to be looking at the persuasion being used on Sub-Saharan African people groups in order to get them to take vitamin A. We believe we're educationally superior, but in fact, is vitamin A a vitamin? Originally, it was called fat-soluble A, and the studies that were used to determine that it was a vitamin were done incorrectly, and that's what the Gerbil studies are all about. Meanwhile, we're teaching something that is a theory as fact. More importantly, we're coercing and persuading billions of people to take this supplement without even realizing the ramifications on their bodies. Of course, there are people that might be behind this. We could look at the conspiracy concept, but more importantly, let's get the truth out there. Let's expose the rat studies as being incorrect. Let's show that vitamin A is not a vitamin, it's a fat-soluble molecule, and the damage it has the potential to do is seen obviously when we look at how it behaves in the human body. For example, when fat-soluble A, or vitamin A, is taken into the body, it's taken to the liver to protect us from it. Proponents of vitamin A would say that it's released over time as the body needs it, but in fact, we never see this behavior. What we see is that vitamin A is detoxed along the same pathways that the body detoxes poisons. While much of the globe believes that vitamin A is required to survive and thrive, let's look at a modern example that that's not true. It's hard to know how many people are actually doing what is called the carnivore diet or a muscle meat carnivore diet, but my guess is somewhere in the tens of thousands. These are people who are eating just muscle meat, no organs at all, and so they are eating a zero vitamin A diet. And what is happening to them? Are they getting scurvy? Are they having eyesight issues? Are they having kidney failure? Are we seeing any significant health problems with them? The only issue that can come up on an all muscle meat carnivore diet is a slowing of the digestive process. So ideally, those people would add a little fiber to their diet to keep them regular. None of the things we're told will happen with vitamin A deficiency. So they are a modern example. But also, there are now thousands of people on what is considered a zero or very low vitamin A diet who are also thriving, people like me. I've been eating almost zero vitamin A for 6 years, and all of my health things have gone away. I still have a few little tiny things, but all of the big diseases, all of the major symptoms that brought me to the diet to begin with, they're all gone. In contrast, what happens when someone gets too much vitamin A, either through food or supplementation? I talked about already how vitamin A is first taken to the liver to be stored, but what about when the liver is full? After that, excess vitamin A that can't fit in the liver anymore spills out into adipose tissues. It spills out into the bloodstream. It goes into the GI tract. But beyond that, excess vitamin A causes major eyesight issues. It causes kidney failure. It causes eczema. Excess vitamin A causes bone pain, joint pain, hair loss, heart problems, osteoporosis, and so much more. There are many, many studies linking vitamin A to problems, and this isn't acute vitamin A toxicity we're talking about. We're talking about building up vitamin A in the system over time, chronic vitamin A toxicity. Why are there so many claims that vitamin A reduces the death rate, that it prevents measles, malaria, diarrhea, it improves eyesight and prevents night blindness? This is what the African people are being told. Where do these claims come from? In upcoming videos, we'll look more closely at the studies and work of scientists who believe that vitamin A deficiency causes health problems and who promote vitamin A supplementation and fortification of foods. Today, I'm staying focused on the methods of coercion used, but I look forward to discussing the work of scientists like Alfred Sommer and others soon. The scientific misunderstandings come from the fact that many Africans, when tested, show low serum vitamin A. This is because the body requires protein in order to take vitamin A out of the body. And so we see vitamin A in the blood in a high or a moderate protein diet because the body is detoxing it through the blood as well as through the GI tract and other methods. I'll share a study here that shows us vitamin A is shown in the blood with a higher protein diet. But when the body doesn't have enough protein, it can't detox vitamin A, so it stores it in the liver to protect the host from it. This is why when we increase protein and we increase zinc in a diet, we will see more vitamin A in the blood. And it's the same reason that in Africa, when they test for vitamin A and they come up with vitamin A deficient blood, it's because the diet of these African people is low in protein and zinc. So if we want to help these people, we should not give them more vitamin A. We actually need to help them by providing protein and zinc, or at least stop with the vitamin A supplementation, which is only making their livers more toxic and eventually their entire bodies. Somewhere between 53 and 60% of Sub-Saharan Africa has been successfully targeted with the vitamin A supplementation campaigns. Let's look at the health claims they're making. Supplementation targeted in Gambia says vitamin A reduces the death rate from measles by 50%, diarrhea by 40%, the overall death rate by 25 to 35%, and prevents eye problems and night blindness. I received an email from a YouTube viewer that also told me malaria is being targeted and that 4 times a year supplementation is recommended to prevent malaria. To impose a theory on a people group is some kind of dystopian evil. I'm sure that most of the doctors and nurses have really good intentions when they're administering vitamin A. They believe it's good for the people they're giving it to. But it's done in ignorance. To say and assume that we in the West know more, to say that we need to educate developing nations, actually reveals our supreme ignorance and our hubris. Because in fact, we're poisoning billions of people, shortening their lives, causing disease in them, giving this supplement to very young children and even babies. Who recommends supplementation for African people groups every 6 months? Let's take a look at the doses. As mentioned, for malaria, supplementation is recommended 4 times a year at 20,000 IUs each time. For all other general vitamin A needs, as far as their understanding of how it helps to prevent health problems, 100,000 international units, or IUs, are recommended for babies starting at 6 months to 11 months of age. After 11 months, 200,000 IUs are recommended every 6 months. Immediate acute reactions to the vitamin A supplementation happen in 3 to 7% of the children. A lot of what is to blame in all of this is science in general and how we do science in America and in this modern age. There are so many pieces of information that we've gathered that we don't understand correctly, and yet we teach them in schools and we implement them in hospitals. And so the very premise of how science works right now is incorrect. We need to open our eyes a lot wider and stop being so ignorant. We need to understand there are major ramifications for drawing conclusions from false studies. We need to do good science. We need to do no harm. We need to not impose supplementation on other people groups. If we want to provide and help other people groups, we could certainly do that through basic nutrition, through basic unfortified, unenriched grains that are grown naturally, or meat. But we certainly cannot be putting supplements into people's lives. Giving medicine to other countries has become standard, but so much of the medicine we use in the West is not effective, and oftentimes it's dangerous, it's hurtful, and vitamin A is just one example. What if Western medicine has it wrong and we're actually harming people instead of helping them? Let's go back and look at some of the supplementation that's been happening since 2009. In 2009, about 77% of preschool children in more than 103 targeted countries received 2 doses of vitamin A supplements. That means that 12-month-old babies were being given 200,000 IUs of vitamin A every 6 months. Of those 103 countries targeted, 42 of them were in Sub-Saharan Africa and 46 in Africa as a whole. In 2010, Canada targeted Africa with supplementation of vitamin A and successfully administered 8 billion doses of vitamin A to children. In 2013, we have a report from UNICEF that more than half the population was successfully supplemented with vitamin A throughout all of Eastern and Southern Africa. And next up, we're going to look at an important study published in 2025 that was targeted in the Democratic Republic of Congo. The World Health Organization tells us that in 2023 and 2024, only 53% of the population in the DRC were given vitamin A supplementation, in contrast to 60% of the population globally. As a result, they launched a study to try and figure out ways to persuade the native people groups to take vitamin A. And what they concluded I'll I'll share now. These are the ways that the World Health Organization concluded were the most effective in terms of gaining the trust of the native peoples so that they would take vitamin A supplementation. The goal of the World Health Organization is to override native beliefs and convince mothers that vitamin A is essential. Here are actual excerpts from this study on how to convince native peoples to take the pills. Number 1, use education as persuasion. The study says when mothers are educated and understand the importance of vitamins, they are motivated. In other words, once they believe what we believe about vitamin A, they comply. Method number 2, local community pressure and daily persistence. So use trusted neighbors such as community health workers as the messengers. One messenger reports, they live in the community, they know everyone, we don't have many communication issues. So it's familiar faces that are trustworthy conveying the information about vitamin A. Method number 3, bundling vitamin A with trusted medicine. Who pairs vitamin A with deworming pills? A quote is, parents are more familiar with deworming. This motivates them to bring their children. And because they trust one medicine, they're more likely to trust the second one given at the same time. Method number 4, slip it in with other care. In this case, prenatal visits and mosquito net distributions draw women, and then at the gathering for health help, vitamin A is slipped in also. Method number 5, the name itself, vitamin. Participants in whose study reported the term vitamin is widely recognized as something that nourishes. So who emphasizes that it's a vitamin to manipulate the people's trust? Method number 6, the sweet taste and no shots. The capsule tastes good, not like an injection, so kids are happier to taste it. And whose staff can tell the kids ahead of time that vitamin A is sweet and tastes good? The kids feel like they're getting candy, and the parents are happy that their children won't experience pain from a shot. Plus, it seems less dangerous. Workers report vitamin A is sweet. We haven't recorded side effects like with shots. Thus, immediate comfort of the sweetness hides any long-term harm. I would add here that delayed toxicity means no blame, so side effects build up slowly and they're never linked back to the dose. The next method out of 8, this is method number 7, exploiting desperation. This method is a little redundant, but mothers of malnourished children comply easily because they're also given food or aid. One worker says they see the benefit because they receive care for malnourished children. And the last method that WHO uses, method number 8, recruiting pastors and local leaders. This, of course, is my least favorite method. WHO workers enlist church leaders to legitimize it. The study participant noted some mothers agreed to give vitamin A out of respect for local leaders. So once again in history, faith becomes a tool for gaining compliance. Although it seems obvious, we should not try and use Christian leaders to deceive people into taking medicine that WHO thinks is good for them. We should fear God, not try and use him for human gain. Next up, what are the barriers to vitamin A supplementation that the World Health Organization encounters? Various beliefs persist within the DRC communities that hinder the uptake of vitamin A supplementation among children. WHO workers acknowledged that some individuals, especially those who are wealthier or more educated, perceive vitamin A supplementation as harmful to children and do not consider it beneficial for their health. A staff person reports, there is also reluctance from some affluent families who refuse to give vitamin A to their children, fearing that the capsule might harm their child's health or that it will negatively impact their child's well-being. Those who refuse say that when we grew up, there weren't as many shots, and look at how many diseases we had, meaning not a lot. They believe that giving more shots to children now is the cause of many illnesses, as they are not sufficiently informed. So the WHO worker is saying that the educated African person is not informed because they don't agree with Western approaches to health. The next barrier mentioned, WHO titles parental negligence. When explained further, what WHO labels parental negligence is actually parents who don't show up to scheduled appointments. Maybe they don't come because they were convinced to do something in the first place that they didn't want to do, or as the article states, basic survival needs like providing food are their priority. The title parental negligence is morally presumptuous, culturally ignorant, and patronizing. In the section titled Religious Barriers, I just want to highlight a few really poignant points here. One quote says, religious groups are reported as perceiving medical interventions as very dangerous. While this is looked down upon by WHO's workers, and in this study, I would like to applaud their suspicions and just remark that these leaders are wise for seeing the supplements as dangerous. Secondly, another quote, strategies have been put in place to persuade religious groups of the benefits of vitamin A supplementation. Again, these strategies are paternalistic and manipulative. I also want to point out that the religious groups are concerned about corruption. Specifically, that word is used. It's reported that they express distrust toward the authorities. WHO seems to be referring to itself as the authorities. I feel like we're back in the late 19th century with this kind of language. I'm genuinely shocked that this paper was published in 2025. At least they're not hiding their mindset. Do we not govern our own bodies and our own families? WHO does not have authority over DRC villages or individuals. We need to get out of Africa, get out of the way when we're not actually being helpful to what the people themselves want to do. Next, we see the barrier of unmotivated providers in the community. And to address that, WHO has begun working on giving out appropriate incentives. You can see what all of this has become, right? Incentives are being offered to providers as a means to an end to ensure community compliance, even if it means manipulating the people. All of this for vitamin A. The last interesting barrier to look at is the unequal distribution of food. If one family sees that another family receives food, but they are only persuaded to take a pill, they are more suspicious of the supplement. I know I'd feel the same way. It is logical to be skeptical of pills being offered for free and to want food instead. Lastly, we read, a number of strategies have been put in place to persuade these religious groups of the benefits of vitamin A supplementation. My comment on this is that it's sickening. In closing, I just want to say that while I've focused on Africa in this video, only about half of the countries being targeted are in Africa. Many other countries are also victims of these campaigns. This is video number 2. In video number 3, I'm planning to share the launch of the study with my pet rodents. But in video 4, I'm going to address a really important question perhaps many people have, which is what evidence is there for vitamin A supplementation helping with health issues like blindness, measles, or malaria? Countries like India are against what they call the magic capsule. So the WHO and UNICEF is working harder to fortify their foods. This is completely immoral and unacceptable, an evil imposed into people's diets without their knowledge. We'll talk about this and more in upcoming videos. To use strategy and mental manipulation to try and make people take something that they're naturally skeptical about, that they distrust, is totalitarian. Even if it's done innocently by people who are trying to help, we cannot persuade other people to put things into their bodies. The malnourished need protein, zinc, fiber, and clean water to survive and thrive. The goal then with this set of videos is to expose that all of our assumptions that we hold about vitamin A are wrong, to overturn former studies, to be part of the broader movement that exposes the truth, and ultimately to affect world fortification systems.